I think it's been a really worthwhile endeavor, and those of us who have been involved have been enriched. So now it's my turn to give you a little bit of insight as to how we got here, in this building, I mean. Our congregation was 23 years old in 2012 when longtime member and former president Ruth Gray died and left us her estate to purchase or build a home for the congregation. Of course, that represented a huge change for the congregation that had been renting space or meeting in one another's homes. So we undertook research and analysis, including demographic studies and much discussion. UUs are known for discussion, which culminated in a formal congregational vote in November 2012 to determine whether the congregation wanted to accept the bequest and all that that implied. The vote was virtually unanimous. A building committee was convened with Carl Skiles as the overall committee chair. Carl, you need to take a bow.
Got some flyers put up in front there, but we now have a mental health support group in Lake County at Mount Dora Library Thursday at 6:30, and it's been growing real well. It's almost a year now. Hard to believe, but if you have a loved one with a mental illness, bipolar, depression, anxiety, whatever, you can come and get support on understanding them. Or if you have an illness yourself, you can come and get education and support. So it's open to everybody. Thursdays at 6:30, so feel free to come or take a flyer and pass the word. Thank you.
No, slow. Oh, I'm sorry. So you guys follow Stu. Here we go.
And I'll be your service leader today. As you'll see in your order of service, today's program is a collaboration by both the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lake County, and you'll hear me talking about it as Uuclc, and the Interfaith Council of Lake County. I am the president of the board of Uuclc, and I'm also a member of the Interfaith Council of Lake County. And Logan, who you've met already, will accompany us on the piano. UUs are a brave and compassionate group of thinkers and doers. We are diverse in faith, ethnic history, and spirituality, but aligned in our desire to make a difference for the good. We are people of many beliefs and backgrounds, people with a religious background, people with none, people who believe in God, people who do not, and people who let the mystery be. If you are a first-time visitor or returning after a long absence and are willing, we invite you to stand now and introduce yourself. I've seen a lot of new faces, so I expect a lot of people to stand up now.
Trying to film.
Wow. All right, I'm going to start on the left side here. Avadni, please say hello.
Hi, I'm Avadni Soto, and I live in Leesburg, and I attend Corpus Christi Episcopal.
And you're here with?
Donald.
And we're going to hear from Avadni a bit later in our program.
Dennis Wick and my wife Renee, and we are members of Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran in Claremont.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Dick?
Dick and my wife Ruth, we also belong to Corpus Christi Episcopal in Oklahoma, and I'm a member of the Education Committee for the Faith Council.
Pardon?
Sorry, I can't stand. I'm trying to film you at the
Well,
same
and I
time.
appreciate that. Thank you so much for doing that, Jason.
I am Jason Berkowitz. I work as a special education teaching assistant for an organization called Capital Region BOCES in Albany, New York.
Ah, you came a long way.
Yes, I did.
Only to see us.
Yes.
Perry.
I'm his father. And I'm Perry Berkowitz. I'm on the board and the education committee for the Interfaith Council of Lake County, and I love your new church.
Fear and blood and daily numbing horror. And sanctuary says, not in here, not in my home, not in my bed, not in my movement. Here with us, you are safe. We need to embrace the duty of sanctuary, not just as a physical offering of refuge, but as a duty to each other. And as a UU, that's what I mean by sanctuary. Sanctuary to those who know oppression in our society. I want to read to you a January 2017 Declaration of Conscience from our parent organization of the, and that's the UUA. January 2017 was 8 months ago. At this extraordinary time in our nation's history, we are called to affirm our profound commitment to the fundamental principles of justice, equity, and compassion.
He also lives in Claremont. You want to give him an introduction?
No, that's fine.
So he lives in. He's also part of the same community, the South Lake Islamic Center. He is a real estate agent, very good friend of mine, and also a good doer in the community.
Thank you for coming.
Jay, please stand.
Ali and Jay.
Mohammed Al-Shurman. I'm part of the Islamic Center of South Lake County, and I was a part of the Interfaith Council.
Son of the Imam, too.
Events.
The imam's son, right?
Yes.
And these little guys in the back?
Okay.
His brother?
And it's Ali's my son.
To be expressing my gratitude to Logan. This group, the mental health group, and his commitment to it, I have been a beneficiary of. It has, for me, has been so wonderful to be able to have a place to go, and he's always there with such good information. Thank you, Logan.
Saturday on Facebook, well, first let me go back. When I was at GA, General Assembly in New Orleans, I met this little boy who was in our workshop who dances in the Mardi Gras, and they make their feathers and they make their costumes, and it was a workshop. I fell in love with this little boy, maybe about 10 years old. He didn't leave my side. There was a connection there. So I became Facebook friends with his mama. Friday on Facebook, she had a live thing on Facebook, and she was in the car, and he was laying on her shoulder, that he said he wanted to feed poor people. So she was telling all her Facebook friends she was going to make 40 dinners, and they were going to go to feed the poor people and the homeless that are under the bridge in New Orleans.
Cool.
And Mackay, I could see, was crying. Yesterday I got on Facebook, and she had a video of then she did it. They actually made 40 dinners, and she and her awesome little child, she showed them pulling up under the bridge and all these tents, and she showed Mackay running from homeless person to homeless person, passing out plates of food. And
upon our concerns as a community, our concerns spoken and unspoken. If there is anyone else that you feel needs to be held in our light, please name them aloud now.
Janice?
Margaret. Shannon. No matter where you are on life's journey, thank you for joining us. We hope you feel at home and you will find friendships here. Please join me now in reading our congregational covenant, both in our order of service and soon on our screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. How could I forget of our UU faith? And we will sing Spirit of Life as together. Celebration that was proposed by the Education Committee of the Interfaith Council of Lake County. A little over a year ago, on June 27, 2016, UUCLC received an invitation. It read, UUCLC is well known throughout the county for their stand that all religious beliefs are respected, understood, and honored. We would be honored by your church's participation at this meeting. For the past year, members of this congregation have been active members of the council, and today we are happy to celebrate the Interfaith Council's first anniversary, along with the UUCLC being in our new building. Yes, this is truly a reason to celebrate. But just continued existence is not enough. The reason we have such a fruitful partnership, the UUCLC and the Interfaith Council, is that we share many of the same values. They are so fundamental that it's hard for me to understand how anyone can argue with them. They're printed every Sunday on the front of our bulletin. You can read them along with me. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Who can quarrel with that? We have two brave souls with us today who have agreed to speak to us briefly and tell us about a time when they did not feel safe and when they were in need of sanctuary and how they found sanctuary. I asked Dennis Wick, the chair of the Education Committee of the Interfaith Council, to tell us a little bit about the Interfaith Council of Lake County. Dennis?
Thank you, Chris. This is really an honor to be here today. There are so many people to thank, and first of all, this worship service started out so wonderful. And I hope this is not a travel log of my trip of this last year, because at least it won't last for hours. So with that, I would like to start with how Interfaith came into being. And one of the things that happened, there was two things that really brought it into, there it is, into birth, was the sale of the Unity Church building to the Islamic Center of Lake County in Leesburg, which had created quite an uproar. There was a lot of rebellion against it, with the zoning and planning and other things. And that, followed by the shooting at the Pulse nightclub, really kind of put it over the top. And it was at that point that our founder, Sandy Kahn Arnold, pulled people together, and that was really the beginnings of it. I was not around at that time. I am really grateful to the dedicated and courageous people who made this happen. And we were going to model what we were doing off of the Interfaith Council of Central Florida, except when we realized that we wanted to enhance that a little bit and broaden the breadth of who we're including, and that is where, oops, I did it twice. I'm missing a slide. Did you take it out?
No. Maybe it's somewhere else.
Maybe. Well, no, they're still missing a slide. Maybe it'll come up. If it pops up in the middle of somewhere, we'll know. But where UUC came into play is really the last portion of our mission statement. Let's see better here. The mission of Interfaith Lake County is to create a better, more peaceful, more harmonious community by encouraging and facilitating greater interest in, understanding of, respect for, and cooperation among our county's many faith traditions, as well as non-theists and humanists, which was very, very important. There it is. It got out of order. This was, again, these first two photos were out of the news articles in the Claremont newspaper, Leesburg Commercial. We had very good articles in there, and I'm hoping we can get some more coverage as we go forward. Thank you, Chris, for making sure this all happened. This was all before me, so I'm really grateful. And once we got going and it was going, I ended up on serving with a really wonderful group of people on the education committee. And our goals there were to try and eliminate the hatred that can be there, because we realize many times hatred is caused by fear, and fear is caused by ignorance. And there's only one way to combat ignorance, and that is, in our mind at least, to help people experience everyone else and understand. So our very first Interfaith Forum was at the Islamic Center in South Lake County, and there we invited everybody to come with their questions. You know, we primarily wanted the speakers to cover what were the primary tenets of their faith, what do they believe was some of the most misunderstood facts about their faith, and if they could bring one message out about their faith, they'd like to tell other people what was that. And we had wonderful speakers. The Reverend Amanda Bordenkircher, Perry Berkowitz, and Imam Dr. Shadi Al-Shortman. And one of the things that I really learned out of this, is, I'm not going to recite the whole thing, but we opened the service, or the forum, with the reading of a poem by Maya Angelou, The Human Family. And I'm only going to read the last part, because it's a very beautiful poem, and that is, I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. Sorry. Our next event was at Corpus Christi Episcopal Church in Okahumpka, and there what we wanted to talk about was how our individual faiths sustained us during different challenges or changes we go through in our life. And we had a variety of speakers who talked about the different challenges they faced or situations they faced. And if there was a takeaway from this forum, for me at least, it is that there is real truth in all faiths. Our next event was at Congregation Beth Shalom in Leesburg, and at the request of them, our topic was the Golden Rule and how it is observed in all faiths. The speakers were very dynamic. It was a wonderful night, and before it was over, we had moved from the Golden Rule to the Platinum Rule. Which is, the Golden Rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. The Platinum is do unto others as they would like to have it done to them. And it was a very wonderful evening. It was, if you could just feel the love in the room, it was really great. And the fellowship was really wonderful. And afterwards, people gathered together, and you could just see the shared love and fellowship that was in the room. I mean, it's just a very moving night for me. Next, the women of our group decided they were going to kick us guys out and have a women's only day. And it was women breaking bread together, and it was supposed to be an afternoon of love and fellowship. And one of the things that they were doing for the breaking bread is everyone attending was asked to either bring something that they would make for someone they loved, or something that someone that loved them made for them. And as we went to help clean up, we got to eat the leftovers, so it was good. And they did their sharing. Either they could get up and speak in front of the group, or they had individual conversations at the table. But I think they had a wonderful afternoon, and Donald and I did get to clean up the leftovers. Our next event was at the Unity Spiritual Center in Fruitland Park, and the topic for there was our environment, which their center is, I don't know how you describe it, it's like geodesic domes, 3 domes put together in the middle of this wooded area. So environmentally, it was very, very good. And we talked, and one of the things that, as we are all connected, how the faiths all kind of tie together. Especially, I was moved by how the Jewish and Islamic faiths put a value into the planting of a tree. And that was, very enlightening to me. And indeed, we are all connected if the environment affects all of us. And again, the speakers were really wonderful. There was Perry, Fazia Chowdhury, and Reverend Marge, Miraculous Marge. And this will be our last event we had for the year. And it was at the Genesis Center, and talking about how all of our faiths call us to be in service to others. God's work, our hands, was, again, the topic chosen by Reverend Ken, Pastor Ken Scrubs, who runs the center. And I must say that this was really something. I think the things that are going to happen good in the future, because of the miracles that are happening with the youth in this program, could be outstanding. They bring in over 100 kids every afternoon after school for remedial work and enhancement work. And it's just amazing the things that are happening there. And I also learned one other thing, that Pastor Ken and myself, we have a real passion for all things holy, especially if they come from the Donut King in Mineola. He has a big job, so he gets a big donut.
And he doesn't share.
No.
Goodness merciful. I want to thank you all for allowing me to come here and speak to you today. And I appreciate everything that the Interfaith Council has been doing in the last year. And as Dennis highlighted, we've been involved every step of the way. I haven't been to all the events, but I've been to some of the major ones. And been allowed to speak to and address the crowd once before when Imam Sykes could not make it because of the GPS issue. But tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Sam Chouan. I live in Claremont. I'm 52 years old. I have 5 kids. But I was once a refugee in my life, in my past history. I was a refugee as a result of the Iraq-Kuwait war. And can't tell you how grateful I am to this country for accepting me and taking care of me and to allow me to become a productive citizen here, rebuild myself today. And thank God I own a couple of businesses, I employ 22 people, I pay my taxes, I do good in the community. And I hate it, or I shouldn't say the word hate. I feel very bad when I see situations where people get misunderstood. And perceptions are built in people's minds to make people create hate, fear of others, of certain groups out there in the world who are desperate and their situations are not as good as ours. So I remember back in 1990, I was leading a normal life back in Kuwait. I was about to get married, August 2nd, 1990. And I was head of a division, a vehicle division called Peugeot. I don't know if some of you are familiar with the car Peugeot. It's a French car. And I was doing really well, making good money. And then all of a sudden, Saddam decided to invade Kuwait. And everything just went, down the drain. Army walked into the country, destruction everywhere, killing left, right, and center. I remember being holed in a building with my mother and sister and father underneath the stairs while a tank, where AK-47 bullets were flying through the window. Imagine what kind of a situation that is. And escaping the country 40 days later, going through going through Iraq at the time. Not every refugee is out there to take your job or take your home or offer sanctuary to people. This is the right thing to do in any faith, whether it's Judaism, Islam, or Christianity, or whatever. And they want to help out. And I believe that's the case in everybody sitting here. If you see something wrong, you automatically want to fix it. You want to do good. So that's my message to you today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thank you for a very successful event today. Thanks.
Thank you. Turmoil, because our then Prime Minister had declared that he was going to run a socialist government, and I think the United States did not like having somebody who is declaring socialism near to them. But in the meantime, my husband, who is not from Jamaica, decided that maybe we should look somewhere else to live, because things were getting very difficult. My father lived in Detroit at the time, Detroit, Michigan, and he sponsored us to come to the United States. But we didn't just want to come, we both wanted to get more education. I wanted to do a master's degree, and my husband wanted to do his doctorate. So we started applying for scholarships, and we both got what they call OAS, Scholarships, Organization of American States. Mine was to the University of Iowa, his was to the University of Ohio, but I didn't know the geography. I thought we'd go take them, we'd see them, and we'd see each other on weekend, and my little boy at that time was 3 years old. I got a very good scholarship. They offered daycare and a stipend, so I'd keep my son and we'd meet up. And then I started talking to people in the U.S. They say, "Are you crazy? You're nowhere near each other." And we had lots of friends in the Philadelphia area, Washington, D.C. area. And they said, "Why not come to Philadelphia and try to go to school there, because there's so many universities around." So we had friends. So my husband decided to go first. We know we needed to work somewhere. We didn't want to go to Michigan. And he found a job as what was called a house parent for adults who were coming out of institutions. That was just when the deinstitutionalization of mentally, people who were intellectually challenged. A lot of these people were put into mental institutions when they were not crazy, they just had some difficulty learning. So he became a house parent, and then so I came up from Jamaica. We had somewhere to live. So we both lived, and then we were going to school. We did our schedule, so one would go to school, one would work, and we did that for a while. Well, my husband afterwards got promoted in that institution, and then he became like a regional director. Luckily, I still was a house manager, so we could still live there. When I completed my master's degree, however, the organization also promoted me and said, now we no longer had a residential position, so we had to find somewhere to live. But while we're there for about 3 years. During that time, every bit of our money was saving. We didn't have to spend a penny. So all we spent our money on was going to school. So we were trying to, we bought a house, or we made an offer in a house, but it would not close for another 90 days. Remember, those were the days when they didn't have the internet. So when you had to buy a house, they had to do the title search, this search. It took forever to, close on a house in those days. Plus, we had only been in the country 3 years. We did not have a credit history. So how are they going to know that we are going to be good for a mortgage? Luckily, I had a car loan in Jamaica, so they were able to say, oh, you paid off your car loan, so you're good. So that was what allowed us to purchase a house, but we still had to put down 20%. Anyway, we could not get any short-term rentals. My husband, myself, and we had 2 cats. We couldn't go to someone's house. Nobody's going to take in 2 people. We didn't have enough money to go to one of these long-term hotels because that would take our whole monthly income. So there was this man who was working at the organization. His name was Herman Rother. He was originally from East Germany, and he told us about how he escaped East Germany. They caught him, the guards caught him, but he begged them, he was a young man, please let me go, please. And he said, you're going to run, and I'm going to shoot after you because I have to show that I did a thing. But you'll run, just keep running, and you'll go. And that's how he escaped Germany. So he got Santer from those soldiers. However, because they knew our situation, someone who has been there and know what it is like, he said to us one day, we have a house at the Jersey Shore. We usually go there every summer. Why not stay? No, that did not happen. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. The agency said, we have a house in Northeast Philadelphia, which has had problems with racism. We have been trying to open a program there, but those people are not very happy with people who are intellectually challenged coming to be their neighbor. So we've not been able to program the house. You can go and stay there if you want, but please be aware that you may get up the next morning, your tires may be slashed. So I knew a friend, I was in grad school, I knew a friend I met from grad school, and I know she lived near that area. She was Jewish, and so, as you know, without Jewish help, Martin Luther King would not have been able to succeed. He got the greatest help from members of the Jewish faith. And so she understands what it is. She said, I will come with you the night you're moving in, and I'll be your voice. So she was there, she turned up. Needless to say, we turned up, and suddenly there's a police siren coming. They heard that there was a break-in into this house, which was empty before. So as we said, it's not a break-in. We have the keys for the house. Well, where did we get the keys? So we showed them our ID to show that we work for Ken Crest and it belonged to them. Well, the neighbors were not so happy we were going to get up. They started shouting at us that they didn't want any N-word people in their neighborhood. That's why they moved here. They're not going to allow it. And they tried to bar us from going to them. The cops, however, got them to let us go in. And Debbie, bless her, she kept shouting at them and telling them, they have a house, they just need it. Well, we don't care. And it went on, and I was so scared. We stayed there for about 4 weeks. And every morning before I got up, I looked around me. I made sure it was safe to go outside. I took my son with me. He stayed at, it was in the summer. He stayed at the Y during the day at the camp until we got back up. But I was so unhappy. Then this guy I was telling about, Herman, he came to us one day and said, we have this house in New Jersey. Would you like to stay at our house until your house is ready? Because we can see how miserable it is. And I cannot tell you how, because I didn't know him until he came to us. We didn't know anything about him. It turned out that he was a Quaker, and he knows, like the university, Quakers accept everyone, regardless of your religion or your background. They're very active in Iraq during the Iraq War, helping out, and so they offered us their house with 2 cats, a child, and they had a cat, and they said, we let our cat stay outside. If you just put food on the back porch for him, he'll be okay, And that was it, I was so indebted to these people because they brought me the peace of mind and the sanctuary. During the time my son was living, when we lived with these people who were intellectually challenged, I thought it was so important for him to learn about other people. And so sometimes he'd come, he was little, he was like 3, 4. But when we moved to our other house, his best friend was a Jewish boy, Jonathan. And it was so funny because Jonathan would come to my house and say, Mrs. Solo, can I have some bacon? And I said, Jonathan, I have to call your mother. So I called his mother. She said, let him know he can have it until he's bar mitzvah. So for the next 3 years, Jonathan would eat bacon at my house. But one day, when they were in 7th grade, and I was taking them skiing, and we're driving past, and there's this school bus, the little school bus, that have the small, it's usually small, and they carry the special ed kids. And Jonathan, he said, oh, Shaka, look at the sped as in special ed. Jonathan, and my son turned to Jonathan and said, Jonathan, it's not good, it's not right to make fun of people who are different from you. Jonathan, who did that, Jonathan? Hitler did that, Jonathan. And at that time, I knew that I had passed on the right thing. I was so proud of him. And I knew that living in that house and encouraging you are never allowed to make any ethnic jokes or say anything. That's the way I tried to raise my kids. And that's the way they are today. And I can tell you, sometimes you may feel uncomfortable what's happening in Standing Rock or what's happening in Charlottesville. Doesn't apply to you. But sometimes silence can mean that you're complicit. It's not always comfortable to take a stand. But I can tell those of us who are minorities, from whether you're a woman or a person of color or different religion, we feel very threatened right now. It's not a very comfortable time right now. And it seems as if, you can't even depend on the courts to protect you anymore. I was very surprised when I heard that the execution of this man 2 days ago was the first time in Florida that a white man was executed for killing a black person. That never happened in Florida. I mean, I don't believe in the death penalty myself, but I couldn't believe that this has been, this is 2017. So we feel very threatened. And, I just want to say, talk and let your neighbor know that you care for them. As you said, I stand on the side of love. And that's mine. Thank you. We shall all be free. We shall live in peace someday. In my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
Trust that meaningful conversations can change your world. Rely on human goodness. I'm going to remember Jean now and ask her to extinguish our chalice. But not the warmth, I hope, that we've created here together.